Hello and welcome back to our home. My name is Pastor David Burkadall. My wife, the Reverend Sally Welch, and I are co-producing these video streams of living water to bring people encouragement, to share a word of hope and a sense of connection during this coronavirus pandemic. We're at a point now in the pandemic where over 150,000 people have died in the United States alone. That's since January? Typical flu season runs from late fall, say November, up until May, can go as late as May. And in a typical flu season, 56,000 people could die. We're at 150,000 now, just in this time in the United States. We're setting records every day in LA County for the number of deaths. Part of that is because of a delay in reporting methods, so I guess that's better. But Florida's setting death records every day, and other places perhaps are to follow, and yet there are still people who think it's all a hoax. They say there are two kinds of people in the world. People who want to divide everybody in the world into two kinds, and people who don't. There are people who will wear their masks all the time, who will wash their hands regularly, who will keep social distancing regularly, who will refrain from washing or touching their face regularly. And there are people who will do those things some of the time, some will do it most of the time, and some will do it all of the time. So I guess there are four kinds of people in the world. No. People are complex, and there's all kinds of reasons and motivations and fears and hopes that drive people to do the things that they do. The coronavirus was the disease that it calls, anyway, is known as COVID-19, or sometimes people want to be cool, they'll call it C-19. It was originally called the 2019 novel coronavirus because it was new. We didn't know how it would respond to various kinds of treatments, how it would spread, what kind of symptoms we should look for. It was all kind of new, and we're still learning things about it every day. That's the name of the disease, but the virus that causes the disease is called the Severe Acute Respiratory System Coronavirus 2, or SARS-CoV-2. Do you know why they call it the coronavirus? Well, do you like to wear hats? I don't, but I wear them when I have to, and I like to collect funny hats. This is one of my favorites. I don't think this is a funny hat. It says Old Lutheran on it, which I think is appropriate. It's from a company called Old Lutheran that produces Lutheran-branded funny stuff. Lutheran and funny. I don't know if that means the same thing to you, if that's an oxymoron. I think it's appropriate. But it's a company that makes crowns. In fact, if you wear any kind of hat, you wear a crown. This part of the hat is called the crown. So if you wear a hat, you wear a crown. The coronavirus looks like this. Yes, that's right. Want to make sure they have their best side forward. The coronavirus, this is called a virion. One virus is called a virion. It's like a ball with these things sticking out of it. And at the end of each ball is something that looks like a crown. That's why it's called the coronavirus. You might have remembered at the beginning of the pandemic, Corona beer, which uses a crown for its... Is that upside down? Yes, upside down, sorry. Has a crown for its logo, was not selling because apparently people were afraid that it had something to do with the coronavirus. Now I understand sales are brisk, but that was what people knew and didn't know that drove their behavior in the beginning. The Bible mentions crowns quite a fair amount of time. In fact, there are 5 places where the 5 types of crowns that are described for people of the Christian era. There's the crown of life, the incorruptible crown, the crown of righteousness, the crown of glory, and the crown of rejoicing. I personally don't think these are literal crowns that people earn here by their behavior in the world. I think they're metaphorical. They're their way of saying that these are things that are part of the Christian life, that begin now and are brought to perfection in the life to come. They are a consequence of what God has done for us, not something we earn as a special favor in God's eyes. You ever hear someone say, well, you've earned another jewel in your crown? When someone has done something deemed to be sacrificial, for which there's no reward in this life, but provides good for others, you get a jewel in your crown. Well, I looked, and I don't find that anywhere in the Bible. If you can find it, I'd appreciate if you'd let me know. But I think it's more another metaphor, that there are rewards for those who do things that are not seen in this world because God sees. They're not something we get because we earn them or pile up points for them, but they're something we do because we've acted in response to the love that God has first placed within us in a living relationship with the living God, what we call faith. We are called to live the Christian life, not in order to get something, but to celebrate what we have already been given in our lives. In Revelation chapter 4, we get an idea, in fact, of what happens to those crowns, whether they're metaphors or something literal, whether there are rewards, glories that we get for work done in this world, which a crown may symbolize. Here's what happens to them. Around the throne and on each side, this is chapter 4 of Revelation, the last book of the Bible. Around the throne and on each side of the throne are 4 living creatures, full of eyes in front and behind. In the first living creature, like a lion, the second living creature, like an ox, the third living creature with the face like a human face, and the fourth living creature like a flying eagle. These are the symbols of the 4 gospel writers. And the 4 living creatures, each of them with 6 wings, are full of eyes all around and inside. Day and night, without ceasing, they sing, Holy, 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 the Lord God the Almighty, who was and is to come. If those sound familiar, yeah, they're song lyrics. That's the work of the 4 gospel writers. And whenever the living creatures give glory and honor and thanks to the one who is seated on the throne, who lives forever and ever, the 24 elders fall before the one who is seated on the throne and worship the one who lives forever and ever. They cast their crowns before the throne, singing, You are worthy, our Lord and God, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they existed and were created. So what happens to those crowns? Well, for the 24 elders, and I think they're symbolic of the Christian family, you get thrown at Jesus' feet. They are something we give back because they were first given to us in lives that are not our own, but are lived in Jesus Christ in response to what God has given to us. The crowns that we receive belong to God, and all of those things are given back to God in the world to come. I think that we as a people have done a good job, at least as Lutherans, of teaching salvation by faith through grace. The downside of that is nobody wants to do anything. One of my colleagues said. I don't know that that's true everywhere, or even most places, but certainly what we do in this world is not in order to earn our salvation. That's a gift. It's a given. It's something achieved not by us, but by Christ for us at the cross. Do you ever remember the hymn, Crown Him with Many Crowns? It's, some call that the dentist's hymn, Crown Him with Many Crowns. Get it? Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, where does that come from? Well, here's another mind blower for you, also from the book of Revelation, a very difficult and powerful book, one that was written during a time of persecution of the church, as a word of hope to those who were enduring horrible things at the hands of a oppressive government. This is the word that comes to us from the Revelation to St. John. This is from this 5th chapter. Around the throne and on each side of the throne are four living creatures, full of eyes in front and behind. The first living creature, I just read that. Let's go to my other passage from the book of Revelation, which is from the 19th chapter. Here we go. Let's try that again. Then I saw heaven opened, and there was a white horse. Its rider is called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he judges and makes war. His eyes are like a flame of fire, and on his head are many diadems, it means crowns. And he has a name inscribed that no one knows but himself. He is clothed in a robe dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of God. And the armies of heaven, wearing fine linen, white and pure, were following him on white horses. From his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations, and he will rule them with a rod of iron. He will tread the winepress of all the fury of the wrath of God, the Almighty. On his robe and on his thigh he has a name inscribed, King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Now, does that sound like the Jesus you know? Does that sound like the opposite of everything you know about Jesus, the suffering servant, the Lamb of God who humbly goes to his execution? Yeah, I suppose it does for most of us. But imagine now for a minute you lived in a time when it was illegal to be a Christian, when you couldn't get a job if you were a Christian, when you couldn't join the military, which was the only path to civil service, a good, secure government job. If you were tortured, physically tortured, in order to give up your other Christian friends or to give up your faith, if you were thrown in jail, if you were torn apart by wild beasts simply for the entertainment of the masses because your life meant nothing, if you were killed simply because you were a Christian and lived in secret and in fear that maybe you might be next while you were mourning all those who had gone before you, what kind of metaphor would mean something to you that would give you hope? How would you hear those words? Suppose you lived as a slave during and before the Civil War in the United States. What would those words mean to you? Suppose you fought to end slavery in the Civil War. What would those words mean to you? In fact, if they sounded familiar, those words were the basis for the Crown Hymn with Many Crowns, as well as the Battle Hymn of the Republic, a hymn many people don't like to sing today because it seems too militant, too military. But what if our circumstances were different? What would those words mean to me? I submit that they would mean hope, not revenge, but hope. Because ultimately that's the two-word summary of this very strange and oddly symbolic book of the Revelation to St. John, what we call Revelations. The message is God wins. That's the hope that we have within us, that in the end God wins, that there's no virus that can separate us from God. No virus can take away our salvation. No virus can end our living relationship with the living God, because all these things come from God. No one can take them away. In the book of Matthew, toward the end, there are similar chapters in other Gospels, we get a statement about the only crown that really matters, and that's this, in the 27th chapter. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole cohort around him. They stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And that scarlet was a symbol of royalty. It was part of the mocking. And after twisting some thorns into a crown, they put it on his head. They put a reed in his right hand and knelt before him and mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" They spat on him and took the reed and struck him on the head. After mocking him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him. Then they led him away to crucify him. Now, I'd submit that that's the only crown that really matters, the crown of thorns. Ultimately, that's God's answer to the evils of this world, to the oppression and condemnations of this world. The crown of thorns remind us of who's in charge. Isn't that the ultimate irony? The coronavirus it's a crown, but it's a most perishable crown. It will eventually go away. The non-perishable crown, the one for us at the cross by Jesus Christ, the crown of thorns, the gift of salvation, the status of God's people given to us, children of God, brothers and sisters of one another, friends of God in Jesus Christ. This is a status this is our crown, because it can only be given by God. It is the thing that makes us who we are. It is the focal point of our identity, a imperishable crown that will one day, though imperishable, be thrown at Jesus' feet. This is what we long for every day. If you are new to the faith, if you have no faith at all, if you are a person of faith from very long ago, celebrate that faith, or pray that faith might be alive within you today. Ask God to open your heart, to give you that stream of living water that is the presence of the Holy Spirit to reshape you and be the person of the crown of thorns and the crowns of glory that are cast at Jesus' feet. Let us pray. We pray for all those caring for those with the coronavirus and those who now have it and those in danger of getting it. We pray for those who provide essential services and those who seek the common good. We thank you for the life of Congressman Lewis and for all the sacrifice and the witness that he and others brought to bear. We pray for those who are struggling for racial equality and for those who protect and serve. We pray for those who seek to derail the efforts of people of goodwill, that their hearts may turn from destruction and toward the building up of all people. We pray for those struggling with all forms of violence, with mental health issues, and with substance abuse. We pray for the most vulnerable among us, for those who feel insecurities of any kind, and for the leaders of our government and of our church, and toward this end may we be your instruments. We pray with thanksgiving for your gift of faith and pray that many might come to receive that gift. And we bring before you the requests that have been made known to us. For Dean George Pindua and his son with thanksgiving for healing, and for all those of Tanzania and the world, that they might likewise be healed of the coronavirus. For one's mother for healing of cancer, and for her and her extended family, and for peace in your presence and promise. For Sally's sister Susan, and for her cousin Jeff for healing. For all these things, and whatever else you know that we need, we pray, bringing with the words of the prayer you taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Finally, we want to remind you to stay hydrated, to remember your church. By stay hydrated, we mean with the streams of living water to allow them to shape you and nourish you and sustain you. To pray for your church, to find a church if you don't have one, to pray for your pastor, contribute to its ministry, make sure that it's there for you and its full abilities when this coronavirus allows us to come into one another's presence in full physical worship. If you're struggling with thoughts of suicide or mental health issues, please call someone. Allow them to bring that connection to you that they want to give to you, the sense of being a part of something more than yourself. And God's desire that you be made whole. Remember to stay safe, to wear your mask, to wash your hands or sanitize them, to observe social distancing requirements, to avoid touching your face with your hand. All these things help us flatten the curve and demonstrate to others our care for them as well as the common good. Finally, be kind to one another. Everybody struggles during these days to find their way through this pandemic. Be the person that can make it better. This time I invite Sally to come and bring some words of encouragement and the benediction.
Let's see, I've got a little choreography there. All right, I'm going to hold up something in a minute, and I'm going to put it on my lap now. I've got a prop. And I guess it's okay that I am looking at a piece of yellow paper. I have to always ask the director now on this. I've been joining into the funeral of John Lewis this morning with many others I know. He was a humble disciple of Christ. He was a human and rights and civil rights freedom fighter. He was an elder statesman. And it threw me back in time to 1958, to our urban church in St. Louis, Missouri. Showing you a picture of that. This is the prop. It's a wonderful piece of art. It's ink and paint on glass. And it just gives you a sense that it was like a cathedral church. That's what we called them then. And it was about 1,500 members in 1958. We were seeing white flight in the community, all over St. Louis, but certainly in the city, and in the neighborhoods around the church and these cathedral-sized churches which were there on these corners. And they were deciding, many of these churches and many of these people, to move to the west suburbs. And our church and those around us, actually, I wouldn't say struggled with it. I would say were challenged by it, but lived into their decision to vote and to stay in the city. And they were to stand fast, to serve and be served by this community. Even now, to this day, it is there on Delmar Boulevard and Enright. It's an amazing feeling when I go back to it, because on March 1st of 1960, my father died suddenly in 10 hours of the pandemic Asian flu, as it was then called, and I was aged 14. He was 51. I remember my mother saying to me several days after the overflowing funeral, people were shocked. He had just been at the communion table the Sunday before, and now he was gone. My mother said, your father at the time was the president of the church. At the time that there was discussions going on, and should we stay or should we go out of the suburbs, or what do we do? And he, alongside our minister, Dr. G. Curtis Jones, and the congregation, steadfastly led our church to stay in the city and stand alongside the community through the years, from then to now, still standing fast, but being so much a part of the community, not sort of an alien sense of, well, we're here, but no, we're here because of the community, because they supported us, and they were us, and we were them, and are them. The doors were always open. They're open to all. They still remain open till night falls. But there's that sense, again, this is your church, our church. Gardens have sprung up. Head Start programs have sprung up. All kinds of programs go on. They have their own opera company, as a matter of fact. An amazing church for the arts, for everyone, for all backgrounds are welcome there. It is an all-people's church. So now I say to us, as we go forth into the heart of Christ together, be unafraid. Lift up our neighbors, our sisters and brothers all over the world. Stand fast. Do what is just and right and true. In the love and peace of God, the Parent, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. Amen.